this will be the new policy, implement it. Yeah? And then you have to make something out of it. And that makes change difficult. So, actually, I would like to explore with you how you can approach this. And then there are two ways of feeding a carrot. And the first one is, the easiest way, cut the carrot in slices and piece feed it to everyone. Done. Another way is that you say, well, this Ben here on stage, he doesn't like carrots, but we want him to eat carrots. So we have to think of something together to maybe create a dish, add other ingredients, use different ideas, different ways of preparation to come up with something that maybe more people like and more people can relate to. So, two stories about intentional change, and that is important because change always happens, but now we talk about organizational change. So we actually have an idea of something that needs to happen. And the first story is about plan change. And we saw this in a study where two governmental agencies got the assignment to merge in 3 years' time. So you know, at this date, 3 years from now, those two organizations will become one organization. And it was interesting to study these two organizations that were going through this merging process because they approached the change completely differently. And the first organization used a planned approach. They almost took 2 years with top management and consultants and experts from the fields to think of the best way of how the new organization should look like. And after 2 years, they come up with a plan. A great plan, very detailed, every step that needs to be made. Just like I helped you to do the paper exercise. Communicating the goals, telling who is going to do what. And if people don't agree or they don't understand, we call it resistance and we have to manage that. So actually the idea is we're now at point A, and in 3 years' time we have to move to point B, and these are the steps that you make, right? And that is how a lot of change is actually approached. And it's very helpful in certain cases, but it has some downsides. The other story, that was the other agency, going to merge with the other organization, but they thought, okay, government asked us to merge, but how does that look like? Where will we be in 3 years? So let's have a conversation with others within the organization and outside the organization, what that means to us, what it will mean for our clients, for our taxpayers and everything. What are the different pictures, the different visions? And jointly they crafted an image of where they would like to be in 3 years' time. And then they created room for everyone to participate, to experiment, to feedback, to discuss with others, and to learn like, okay, sometimes things went wrong, but sometimes things also went well. And they learned how to move in that direction. They never talked about resistance. They talked about different interpretations, different experiences, different backgrounds, and they all mattered. So they said, we're moving from A here, and we think B is over there, but along the way they learned and discovered, and actually they found that C was maybe a better solution, and as time evolved, D was even a more likely solution, and they ended up with E in 3 years' time. And that was a different picture than the original plan, right? Well, those are two archetypes, and in reality you always find a mixture between the two, and actually you need a mixture between the two. Because as I told you in the beginning, politicians have thought of something, they have deliberated on it, they have made this decision, well thought through decision, and they want to see how you're doing it, right? So you have to make that clear. So which politician is going to be happy if you say, well, just give us 3 year time, we consult everybody, we'll experiment a little bit, we don't know exactly where we will end up, but for sure we will learn a lot along the way, and in 3 years' time, we can assure you things will be better. We don't know how it will look like, but things will be better. We don't know how much it will cost either, but just give us the time and the space and the resources. Which politician do you think will provide room for that, right? So we need a mixture between the two. We need the space for people to experiment, to learn from each other, but we also need a bit of a plan and a framework and everything. So in reality, change often goes as a combination of planned and emergent. Which one of the two is most successful? If we read the management literature, especially on organizational change, there are authors who suggest that 70% of the changes, organizational changes, fail. 70%. Yeah? That means that more than 2/3 of your change initiatives actually fail. There's another stream of literature that says you cannot speak about success or failure when it concerns change, because a carrot is not really a carrot. Because change is ambiguous. I've been talking with managers in public organizations, part of my research, and asking them about the change. They were telling different stories. They had different perceptions. For their department, it meant different things. Maybe they served different groups of clients. They worked with different type of people. So change is ambiguous, and it's very context dependent. What is successful in one case doesn't need to be successful in another case. It also matters who you ask. If we come up with a great plan to make Social Security more affordable for our taxpayers, taxpayers may be happy if they pay less tax, but will the clients or the actual receivers of Social Security money, will they be happier as well? I guess not, right? So it really depends on who you ask. It also matters on when you ask, because now making a plan for change may be a great idea. So I've been working with organizations that said, well, we have to cut costs on the short term. So we stopped all these expensive, fancy programs and projects where we're doing innovative things and no one knew what would come out anyway, so we stopped doing those. 3 years later, what do you think that the feedback was? Well, we cut a lot of costs at that time. We saved a lot of money. But now 3 years later, our clients say we're behind. We're not moving along with how society is changing, right? So what matters then doesn't matter in 3 years' time, when what seems like a good decision now may be a very wrong decision in hindsight. And then, of course, it also matters what you measure and how you measure it. And in most organizational change, we actually measure, are we following the plan? And how is following the plan a measurement of success for change? Because does it really deliver you what you need, or does it just deliver you what you think you want, right? So we need to think about what is the change of success. And I'm more part of that stream of literature to say, well, a carrot is not really a carrot unless we agree upon it. So a different way of looking into it is what we did in another study, where public organizations were going through a major reform. And this major reform actually had effect until the level of frontline caregivers in this instance. And we wanted to look into how change is really embedded within the organization, how it is lived by people within the organization, how they were understanding it, if they had a feel for it, and if they actually were doing the change. And then change is a social phenomena. It's how people cooperate, how they communicate, how they interact with each other. So we thought, okay, a good way of looking at if change is actually doing what it's supposed to do is looking at how groups of people are feeling positive about the change, thinking about the change and understanding it, and yes, doing the change, acting, showing the behavior that is necessary to make the change happen. And we looked into how leadership by managers on several layers within the organization actually helped to embed change in this way. And we found, first of all, that people in the organizations found change complex. Because the nice pictures of brushed carrots that I showed you before suddenly appeared to be a bit messy, a bit dirty, mixed in size, you name it, right? So it's something you have to work with. And the first thing that we found, that leaders who showed directive change behavior, in the conviction that they could make change to people, make change to organizations, actually had a negative effect on embedding change within their organization. So the whole exercise I did with you about tearing a piece of paper, tearing and folding a piece of paper, it showed in our research that that is not a very productive way of approaching change. What did work was that you use involving leadership. You talk about the goals of your organizational change, where you're heading. You have a dialogue with people if they understand where we're heading and why these goals are important. And it's about engaging behavior, engaging others. What can you do? How can you contribute? What do you need to make next steps? Empowering others to actually create change. And also important, it is about boundary spanning. And boundary spanning means that you are in contact with your external environment, with other stakeholders, with partners, with other governmental organizations. And you talk with them about what you're planning to do, how you're working on this change, and you're asking for feedback, and you translate this feedback within your organization. And that appeared very important as well. And what we also found, and we didn't expect that, was that the sense of shared purpose in the organization was very important for people to embrace change and actually work with it. So we thought, okay, in the next study we're going to further investigate that. And this was a study in a mixture of public organizations, and one of them was a social security organization. And here we looked at how organizational change actually helped people to embed change within their team, within their department, within their organization. And we found that if people really experience that their organization has an important societal contribution and they find their work meaningful and they have the feeling that they actually belong to this organization, they much easier embrace the change and act accordingly. They show the behavior. And this is further strengthened by formal change leadership. So your role as managers in organizations really matters. It helps to improve change embeddedness. And if you use it to have conversations about the purpose of the organization, it even has a stronger effect. And what we also found, and this is really important as well, is that shared leadership is important. And shared leadership is what people show among each other within these teams and within these groups. So it is the informal leadership. How do you motivate your team members to contribute to the change? How do you talk with your colleagues within the department about what is really the purpose of this organization and why are we making this change? That was very important to further strengthen the role of purpose in making change happen. So let me come to my conclusions, to the roots for change leadership. So I would say cherish all the diversity within your organization because of this complex environment and this ever-changing world and all the dynamics. To understand what your clients need, what society needs, you need the diversity within your own organization, the expertise people have, the backgrounds they bring in. So there's not one type of carrot. There are a lot of different types of carrots in different colors and shapes, and you need them. Don't do this. Don't try to make just one single thing out of all of these carrots, because the creativity is gone very soon and people will stop believing in it. So what you can do, and this is really my last slide, start with yourself, your own leadership, your own change leadership. Are you talking about